Imagine being the driver of a car and you weren't looking ahead. You weren't paying attention to the surroundings. You weren't paying attention to your directions and where you're going. You had no idea what was happening around you. You didn't know what you were missing out on because you were paying attention to the passenger in the seat next to you. This is kind of like what it's like when you give empathy to someone else. They evacuate your attention from your own life and time. So be sure that if you're going to give empathy to someone, that you use critical thinking, logic, and the ability to analyze the situation at all levels so you can have a broader picture of whether or not this person actually wants help, is looking to change, or if they're just using sympathy and empathy to garner nurturing for their craving that they have from their inner wounds. I wanted to talk a little bit about why you can sometimes feel used and abused when you use empathy with people. Empathy by itself is a really loving, nurturing thing to offer. It's offering presence to someone, the ability to process their struggles and difficulties with them, or analyze the circumstances that are creating a behavior, a story, or an output within them. It's really offering a type of nurturing to a person. And sometimes the people that we offer empathy to have attachment or nurturing wounds. So it makes sense why there are certain people that you give attention, attachment, and empathy to will become dependent upon that type of nurturing and will look to take more than is healthy for you. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to keep yourself safe when you're using empathy and what other tools you need to be using alongside empathy to make sure you're not giving too much. Imagine if you had a child who could not see. You would feel for their struggle. You would feel sympathy and you would empathize with the difficulty that they have to overcome in life that's different than other people. But imagine if all you did was empathize with your blind child. You would not be able to assist the child who could not see to actually be independent and know how to live in the world and have developmental milestones that can help it grow and mature and feel that the life that it has is worth living. So what you would want to do with that child is you would want to help it understand what are the conditions in their environment? What are the expectations? How should they behave? How can they process things that are difficult? How can they overcome obstacles? What types of opportunities are there to envision solutions that may not be necessarily readily available or easy to see? Let's imagine that this blind child has dreams and hopes. How would you help it reach its goals? You would help it imagine ways to solve those problems. You would not only use empathy, you would also use your mind, your imagination, to help them critically think through the steps so that they could imagine a way out of that difficulty and a way in towards the destiny that they crave to be in. It's one thing to empathize with someone's struggle, to understand it deeply, and to hold space and presence with them. But it's even more supportive to offer them a space where you can imagine a way that they can resolve that problem, where you can help them think in a way that might be able to perceive the problem as an opportunity and a way to imagine a different way out of it or a different solution that can resolve it. Empathy alongside critical thinking and using the imagination is a very powerful tool combined. If you don't use all of those things together, you are at risk of creating someone who will be dependent upon you. They may become addicted to the nurturing and the presence that you're giving. They may become addicted to not being the one to solve the problem. They might find it more enjoyable to get that type of attention and to drain those around them without realizing it. Time begins to pass that person by. Milestones begin to be lost. Maturation begins to shrivel. And frustration and anxiety and hyper-reactive behaviors can tend to grow in people like this that don't know how to solve their own problems. It is up to the person who decides to give empathy to someone to know how much to give and how much is too much, how much space to hold, how much attention and presence to hold, how much sympathy to offer without crippling the person, without making them feel that they cannot overcome what is facing them. If you decide to give empathy to someone, it's important for you to analyze the state of being that they're in. What is it that's truly causing this problem that this person is suffering from? Is it something of their own making? Is it something that is happening because someone else is creating the problem for them? Is there a boundary that needs to be set? Can a different way of looking at it be helpful to this person to regain control of their life and continue on? It's important not to take ownership of the problem and the solution, but to guide the person towards their empowerment and what they can do to solve the problem and see it from a different place. When you go through these steps of analyzing things as they truly are from an objective place, not just from an empathic place, you will begin to see that there are some people who choose not to find solutions for their lives. They choose to stay in toxicity and misery. They have found that that type of attention gives them something that they crave: nurturing, pity, people to not expect too much from them. It gives them a safe space to not have to put themselves on the task of doing scary or difficult things like growing up and taking ownership of the outcomes of their lives. Not all people who need empathy are going to use you and abuse you. Some people truly just need someone to hear them in their struggle, to be there for them, and to feel like someone else cares. But oftentimes, if you have been used or abused by somebody who might have narcissistic tendencies and take more from you than is healthy for you and them, then you can be very shy to want to give anyone empathy again. It's important to realize the beauty that empathy presents. Holding space with someone and understanding their struggle is a gift. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's nurturing. Some people, however, have nurturing wounds inside of them. They either had one of two situations. They were never nurtured as a child. They never had someone hold space with them, be tender with them, speak to them lovingly, look at them in loving ways, and be unconditional, non-judgmental. They might have developed a hunger wound for that. So when you empathize with them, they are potentially going to be very attaching to you. They will want to always be around you, will want to come to you with all of their problems, and will use you as an authority figure in their lives because they simply do not see and feel that they are equipped to make the decisions that you're capable of making. This is how codependence can be formed. Codependence is someone who has been removed from their power and is willing to give the power to someone else. They're willing to outsource that power so that they do not have to take responsibility of those outcomes. And therefore, if things go wrong or things are too difficult, they aren't the ones to blame and they can play the victim. And being a victim in this position allows them to get more sympathy, which is what they crave. The nurturing, the pity, and the ability for people to look like they're not the bad ones. They are just the unfortunate ones. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't people in a position that really do have bad things happen to them and can sometimes have a string of bad things happen to them. And it doesn't mean it's their fault. The other reason that people can grow attached to your empathy is because sometimes they have a hunger wound inside because they have been over-nurtured. People who have been coddled, over-nurtured, protected, they grew up with parents that were in control, in charge, perfectly capable and willing to make all the decisions and more comfortable with that, will grow up codependent and unable to make their own choices, but also uninterested in looking for sovereignty and individuality. Those people are more than happy to play the adult child forevermore. They will crave those people around them continuing to nurture them, continuing to give them that feeling that they are looked up to and celebrated and they can have whatever they want. It's very important that if you're going to give empathy to someone, that you're good at analyzing a situation and a person. You're good at analyzing not only the conditions of this person's thinking and emotional state, but also how they behave and how they perceive a situation. It's important for you to have a good handle on what is actually happening from an objective standpoint to the best of your ability. And it's important to be honest with yourself about what it is that they crave. If they continue taking advice that they are not putting into their lives, if they are not making changes in their lives that reflect the advice and the wisdom that you've offered, if they continue in patterns for far too long unnecessarily, even after you've shown them a different way of seeing things and doing things, then they are choosing to stay in a position where they can become nurtured through empathy. And that is the time when you should be considering how to offer tough love, which means putting them in the seat of control of their own outcome. Offering people empathy for too long can really damage them. It's important to always feel for one another, but each person has to be responsible for the outcome. Otherwise, you really destroy their potential that could be created because they will refuse to grow up and mature, and you will become drained and waste all of your time and energy on other people when you really have your own life to live and your own destiny to seed. Imagine being the driver of a car and you weren't looking ahead. You weren't paying attention to the surroundings. You weren't paying attention to your directions and where you're going. You had no idea what was happening around you. You didn't know what you were missing out on because you were paying attention to the passenger in the seat next to you. This is kind of like what it's like when you give empathy to someone else. They evacuate your attention from your own life and time. So be sure that if you're going to give empathy to someone, that you use critical thinking, logic, and the ability to analyze the situation at all levels so you can have a broader picture of whether or not this person actually wants help, is looking to change, or if they're just using sympathy and empathy to garner nurturing for their craving that they have from their inner wounds. Holding people accountable for their own development is so critical. We live in a society where people are not really held accountable. There are many ways that people can behave and hide their bad behaviors. Making sure that you're intelligent enough to see through what's being said to you and really feel into what is actually been presenting itself over time. What's the pattern you're seeing? Is this worth investing your time into? Is this person playing a game to trick you, to get more from you than is worth it to you? You have to be very cautious, but also generous. It's important to give empathy, but just don't render them helpless. If someone does have an attachment wound and they have parasitically attached to you, then it's really important for you to speak your truth and tell them, look, I have my own life to lead. I have my own decisions to make. I need this energy to process my life and my choices and what I'm going through. I love you, but because I love you, I really need you to take accountability for your own life. I'm sorry that these things are making me feel a certain way, but if you can embrace this as an opportunity to grow, you will be able to change these outcomes. And I'm going to be there to celebrate you when you do. I hope this information helps you understand how to use empathy alongside your critical thinking processes. Please let me know how you've experienced the use of empathy and whether or not this was helpful to you. I love you all. Be well.